Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. Today, we're going to be looking at a Bleacher Report article. It's been a bit since I've done one of these article reaction videos, and today we're going to be looking at the top 10 storylines ahead of the 2022 NBA trade deadline. This is by Sean Hyken. I'll put the link to the article in the description if you want to go take a look at it. So these are 10 storylines to kind of keep an eye on. The NBA trade deadline is always one of the most interesting parts of the NBA season because there's a lot of things that have been going on over the course of the season, and it's always a guessing game about who gets moved, who doesn't get moved, and there are so many rumors that are going around. Half of them won't come true, the other half probably will. And so let's take a look at kind of what some of the big storylines are. I thought this would be a good chance to talk about a lot of different things heading into the trade deadline. A lot of content is going to be coming up about the trade deadline, so I'm excited about that. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and tell me who you think your favorite team should trade for or who they should trade away at the deadline. So getting into it, number one is which of the Pacers' big men will be on the move. I'll also kind of give my opinions on each of these. I personally think the Pacers should trade Sabonis and Turner, as well as like a Caris LeVert. Basically, anyone they can sell off, I think now is the time. You're not doing well. If you sell off all your big pieces now, you can tank pretty far down. I think you could probably get a top 5 pick. And it's long overdue for them to kind of go for a rebuild. They've been doing this retooling thing over and over. And they had that one season where Oladipo was a star. They took the Cavs to 7 games in the first round. And since then, the Pacers have just kind of been meh. And they've been a first-round exit team for a while now. They're one of those teams that it feels like they really need to kind of... They desperately need something to shake it up. And so if you deal like Sabonis, Turner, LeVert, and then Brogdon, who can't be traded till the offseason, but say you get to the offseason and you trade him, you can get a lot of picks and young assets for that. You then go on... You have Chris Duarte, who is a younger player. He's not super young like some other NBA rookies, but he is a younger player. You add in those picks, those young assets. And if you tank this season and get like a top 5 pick... there you go. You have a pretty decent start to a rebuild. Maybe you even jump up and get a top 3 pick and you get a guy like a Paolo Banchero, you get a Jay Ivey, a Jabari Smith, a Chet Holmgren, whoever it is you want to go for, you've got a lot of options there in the top 3, top 4. So I think tanking for a pick is the move for this Pacers team. It's always a question of if they're actually going to commit to it, because there have been a lot of teams we've seen in the past, for example, the Orlando Magic, who for a while needed to move on from their guys and yet they didn't. So we'll see. There's, of course, the rumors that they want to trade them. Let's see. They don't have an individual player as tantalizing as Simmons or Grant, but they stand as the team most likely to make a big move. And I mean, I think Miles Turner especially can fit for a ton of teams. Sabonis is maybe a little bit tougher. I think he's more likely to be on this team going into the offseason, but I do think Miles Turner does end up getting moved before the deadline. Number 2 is how far will Portland's fire sale go? Now, of course, there are a lot of guys on this team that could be moved at the deadline. Damian Lillard is sidelined for a while. No one knows if he's going to even come back this season. And so, personally for me, I think this is your chance to kind of blow things up in kind of a way. Basically, Yusuf Nurkic is expiring. Robert Covington is expiring. CJ McCollum kind of feels like it's time for him to finally move. He's needed to be moved for a while now, but now especially that Anthony Simons is going crazy, now feels like a good time to really try and deal off CJ McCollum, let Anthony Simons kind of hoop. You go into this draft and you get a top pick, and you either then trade that top pick and salary for someone to help Damian Lillard, or you bring in that piece, maybe you kind of consider a rebuild and trading Dame at some point. Either way, it's time to sell off some of these pieces, in my opinion, whether it's just trading CJ McCollum or trading McCollum, Nurkic, Covington, Norman Powell, maybe even whoever you deal. I think Portland, personally for me, I think Portland should go all in and deal everyone, including Damian Lillard, but they're not going to deal Dame at this deadline. It's just not going to happen. And so he's going to stay on this team through the offseason, whether he plays or not. But this is a good chance to give your young guys a chance to kind of prove themselves. You're not going to do anything this season, so go ahead, tank, get a top pick, and then you can kind of figure things out in the offseason. Of course, it says here, it's unclear how much power their new GM Cronin has to make big moves as an interim GM while searching for a permanent head of basketball operations. But in what amounts to a lost season amid a lot of organizational upheaval, it appears that everyone outside of Lillard is at least on the table, which is honestly how it should be. Like I said, I think even Damian Lillard should be on the table, but, you know, they're not going to do that. Number 3, are the Hawks done making changes? If you didn't know, the Hawks GM Travis Schlenk, he went on a podcast and he basically said that they have a lot of moves to make, but that was back before they kind of went on this recent winning streak. I think they've won 6 games in a row at this point, but they do have some interesting pieces to trade. And even though they are in a win streak, right now they feel like they're not on the tier of some other teams after making the Eastern Conference Finals this past season. They want to do more than just be a play-in team or a first-round exit, and so they already dealt Cam Reddish for a top 10 pick to kind of clear up that logjam at the forward position. I could see them dealing Bogdanovich, John Collins. Basically, I could see them dealing almost anyone to get Trae Young some help, and I do think, to me, I think they should go out and make a Ben Simmons trade. I've said this before in past videos. I think his defense would add a lot to this team. His ability to cut to the hoop. Of course, he doesn't provide a lot of spacing, but they have a lot of other great shooters. Now, will they make a big move like that? I don't really think so. For me, it kind of feels like the Hawks are going to stand pat with John Collins, with DeAndre Hunter, with Bogdanovich, and I think maybe they'll kind of reconsider it in the offseason. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they do go out and make some moves, but for me personally, I do think the Hawks should try and switch it up a little bit. I'm just not quite sure they're going to make as big of a move as maybe I would like to see them make. Number 4 is, will the Celtics stay the course or shake things up? For me personally, it is overdue for them to kind of shake things up, whether it's trading like a Marcus Smart, as you see here in this picture, whether it's just trying to deal off some kind of salary, whether it's trading Dennis Schroeder, maybe you trade Al Horford, try and get off of his big contract because he's been kind of up and down over the course of this season. Or even whether you consider trading Jaylen Brown. Now, I don't think they're going to trade Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. Of course, not Jason Tatum. He's practically untouchable for them. But I do think you can gauge the market for a Jaylen Brown just to kind of see what's out there. Do you end up moving him? Probably not. I think they should kind of wait on that till the offseason. I think that's the time where a big move like that could be made. But I do think the Celtics should at least try and switch some things up. Deal off Dennis Schroeder. You don't have the money to bring him back. Consider trading a Marcus Smart for maybe a real point guard that can facilitate better than he can and is more of an efficient shooter. Right now, it's just kind of tough to watch this team play. They don't execute very well. They've lost in so many late game situations. And their two stars, Tatum and Brown, are far too talented to really be where they are at right now. So I think they should make some moves. They don't have a lot of great pieces, so I expect kind of some minor ones, but I do think the Celtics will be pretty active. Number 5, which West play-in teams will be buyers? It shows a picture of the Sacramento Kings here with De'Aaron Fox. There's rumors that Fox is he's on the table to be traded, and I could see them moving him. Here it says that the only two teams that are actively tanking are Houston and Oklahoma City. As a Thunder fan, that is very true. Portland is on the downswing. Sacramento, New Orleans, and San Antonio all have interesting trade pieces and want to move up potentially. There have been a lot of reports that the Kings are interested in making a trade with the Sixers for Ben Simmons, but now there's reports that they're kind of done with that. The Pelicans have some pieces. There's rumors that they maybe want like a CJ McCollum. I think that would be pretty interesting. I'm not quite sure what that trade looks like, but I would like to see the Pelicans make a move like that. I think CJ would be a great fit on that team next to Ingram and Zion whenever he does return. And you look at Spurs, it says they're prime candidates for a consolidation trade. They have a lot of young wing players in like Derek White, Keldon Johnson, you have Lonnie Walker. DeJounte Murray has emerged as a star, and so maybe you bring another young piece in to kind of play alongside him. Jakob Poeltl, I could see them kind of selling him off. So I feel like a lot of these teams are kind of in the middle where I could see them both being buyers and sellers, and that's part of what's been so interesting with the play-in tournament is that there are so many teams that feel like they could go either way because that gives them an avenue to make the playoffs. So I'm curious to see what goes on. And I think there's a lot of questions kind of around those teams. At number 6, we have, do the Bulls make an all-in move? I think they should. I think they should consider. Now, of course, here's the problem. The move that I think makes a lot of sense for them is Jeremy Grant. I think they should trade Patrick Williams, Derek Jones Jr. for Jeremy Grant. However the salary works out there, I think that makes sense. The problem is the rumors are that Jeremy Grant doesn't want to be a lower tier option. He wants to be like a first or like a second option. On this team, he would be the third, or actually even the fourth behind Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic, who would probably be number 4. And so there's rumors that he doesn't want to do that. I think it makes a ton of sense for both Jeremy Grant if he wants to win in the Chicago Bulls. But the problem is if he doesn't want to play that role, you don't want to give up a piece like a Patrick Williams. Also, Jeremy Grant is purportedly asking for a lot of money on an extension. So it's kind of tough. I do think they should make an all-in move. It suggests here also a Harrison Barnes. I think he would be a pretty fun piece for them to bring in. If you could somehow bring in like a Harrison Barnes, and maybe like a Marvin Bagley to kind of give you a big. I'm not quite sure what they would have to give up if it's like Patrick Williams or Kobe White. But with a lot of injuries, this Bulls team is really good. And I think that the East and the NBA as a whole right now are kind of wide open enough for them to consider making a move like that. Whether it's a Jeremy Grant or a Harrison Barnes or just some piece that can come in and really solidify that 4 position for them. Will Goran Dragic be freed? Yes. This is kind of an easy one for me. I think he will be. I think he's going to end up getting traded and then bought out somewhere. Yeah, obvious destination is Dallas. Cleveland, I think, could also make a lot of sense. So I do think he ends up somewhere other than the Raptors. There's no way they hold on to him for the whole season. It just doesn't make any sense if he's not playing for them. At number 8 is, can the Lakers do anything? And the problem is, not really, unless they're trading Russell Westbrook for John Wall, which I do not think that they do. I also don't think that makes a ton of sense, but I don't think they have the ability to really do that much. They could maybe go out and get like a guy like a Kenrich Williams from the Thunder, or like a Mike Muscala. Those are two guys that, as a Thunder fan and just kind of as someone who's seen a lot of rumors, there have been rumors that one of those guys could end up there. They could also go out and get like maybe a different wing player. They could bring in another ball handler. There's the rumors that there's that trade package around Taylor Horton Tucker and a first-round pick going around, but they don't have enough salary to make any big moves. And their best young asset is Taylor Horton Tucker. And he was way more valuable in the offseason than he is now, because now he's making about $10 million and he's been super inefficient as a shooter. He hasn't shown a lot of consistency, which is not what you want to see from a young player, especially someone who the Lakers have touted as their premium young prospect. You'd want to see a lot more consistency from him, especially if you're going to trade a star for him or a higher level player like the Lakers want for him. So it's tough for them to do really anything. They kind of just, I think, have to make a smaller trade or two. Maybe they go and get like a Kenrich Williams, who I think would be good for them, a Mike Muscala to give them a spacer at the big position. Maybe they do stuff like that, but I don't see any big trades happening for the Lakers. Number 9 is Jeremy Grant. We talked about kind of how weird his situation is. I think he is a great player, and I think he would be perfect on a number of teams. The Los Angeles Lakers, the Chicago Bulls, amongst many others. But the problem is he doesn't want that role. He kind of just wants to hoop, make money, and be the number one option. And to be honest, a team with Jeremy Grant as your number one option isn't going many places. I like him a lot. He's a Thunder guy, Thunder legend, shout Jeremy Grant, but he's not a one option that's going to win you a lot of games. So it's tough because you want to bring him in because he's a really good complementary piece. But he's not that guy that's going to win you a championship. So contenders are going to be afraid trading for him because he wants a lot of money. He gave this list to the Pistons. It is really tough. I do think Jeremy Grant gets moved, but to be honest, I have no idea where because of that weird situation going on with him. And number 10, the biggest one, is when or will the Ben Simmons saga come to an end? I personally don't know. I thought it would, but Daryl Morey is reportedly okay with keeping Ben Simmons. He's been saying that for a while, but as we get closer to the trade deadline and like reportedly the Kings are out on Ben Simmons, it's up in the air whether Ben Simmons gets moved or not, and I think ultimately he should be moved. I don't think you want to waste this season with Joel Embiid. I think the best package available to them is like a Kings package with Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Harrison Barnes. If you could bring that in for Simmons and Tobias Harris, I think that would be an amazing package for them. There was rumors that something like that was on the table, but now that it kind of seems like the Sixers want more than that, the Kings are kind of out. Maybe they changed their mind after Halliburton put, I think it was 38 points on their head last game. I want it to come to an end. I'm so sick of talking about Ben Simmons, and I know, it says right here, we're tired of the endless stream of non-updates about the months-long standoff between Ben Simmons and Daryl Morey. It feels like every week there's a kind of rumor that, oh, this team's in, this team's out. Now there's the whole thing about maybe Simmons is held on until the offseason for James Harden. There is so much going around about Ben Simmons. I'm over it. He's the biggest name that could possibly be traded. If I have to make a bet right now, I'm going to say he gets traded, and maybe that's just me hoping to kind of regain my sanity. But overall, I'm hoping that this saga comes to an end. Whether it will or not is a completely different story, but I guess we'll see in 10 days. So those are my thoughts on the biggest narratives going into the trade deadline. Let me know what you thought about these. What is another big narrative that you think wasn't really talked about in here? Some things like, do the Hornets bring in a big man? Do the Rockets do like a Christian Wood? Are the Wizards going to blow things up? Those are some other fun things to kind of talk about. If there's anything you want to see me talk about in specific, let me know in the comment section below. Once again, please make sure to like and subscribe. You made it to the end of the video, so you might as well. I appreciate y'all watching. I will see you all later. A real one, say it back.